Hello and welcome. Today we'll have a look at how Jesus handled a narcissist. Then we will cover the foundation from which a smear campaign is done, followed by character impositions. That is when a person's character is assassinated and attacked by imposing twisted character traits on that person. And then lastly, we'll have a look at some biblical examples. Today we will look at the smear campaign in its entirety. We will touch base on the outcome of the smear campaign, the enablers, flying monkeys, and then we'll dive deeper into how it directly impacts the target in both the physical and spiritual aspect of life. One might ask, how does the smear campaign benefit the one who's doing it? I mean, when you think about any kind of inhumane act, the underlying question becomes, well, what does the perpetrator gain? What do you gain by harming another person? What do you gain by inflicting psychic violence or evil towards someone else? So I just want to cover the grounds on which the narcissists, in the physical sense, the human narcissists that we deal with, how they benefit from the smear campaign, as well as how on the spiritual aspect of things, the evil spirits then benefit. As you know, that we are looking at the context of family relationships, church relationships, society as a whole, work environments, etc. Wherever there is an intersection of one human to another, wherever there is a relationship that enables some kind of human relatability, there will be friction. There will be some fantasy going on there. And there will be roles and expectations that have to be fulfilled by one party and then validating the needs or requirements of the other party. So let's go back to the example of the family dynamic. So within the Christian family dynamic or any family dynamic, the parents are old in age, which means that when children are born into the family, they come into a structure or partnership that pre-exists before their existence. For example, if you guys are a family of 5 children to 2 parents, then it means that whoever those parents have as relatives, you just inherit them. By virtue of them being your parents, you then get to inherit their relatives. You inherit their religious beliefs, the community they're in, and all of their social construct. You get to be a part of it because you'll be brought to all these people, you'll be introduced to all these people, you will grow and know them as your people because they are your parents' people. Right. So the way in which abusive, particularly narcissistic parents benefit in smearing children is because they have time to their advantage. They have the advantage that they've had a lot of time with all these people to lay a foundation on themselves. So they lay this foundation of how they want to be perceived by their social group, how they want to be perceived in their religious group or in their work environment. So they, on the foundational plane of things, they have the upper hand. And when you are born into that family as a child, there are narratives that will be difficult for you to move, perceptions that will be hard for you to reshape or object because they are rock solid by the time that the child is born. The only place or instance where we see this strategy failing is the work environment. In the work environment, it is almost impossible for the narcissist to survive and thrive in their abuse because everyone knows the true character of the narcissist. And of course, although people may be silent and just taking the abuse because they need the money, they can't afford to be economically inactive, but ultimately, everyone in the organization know the true character of the narcissist. So it becomes much more difficult for this strategy to crumble in the family dynamic because in the family dynamic, well, the parents existed before you, so their word matters. So whatever they say goes, and you're just being a child, you're just being naughty, you're just complaining for no reason. it's so easy for society, for these communities to push you away and just tell you to, get over it. It can't be that bad, because the parents have the advantage of time to lay a foundation on themselves, as well as to acquire as many flying monkeys as possible and as many enablers as possible. In the previous video, I highlighted just how calculative narcissistic people are, in particular parents, and far worse in the Christian family dynamic, because they just have this form of godliness. They have this facade and track record of going to church every weekend. So there's no way you can come and raise a concern about their character, their behavior, or any kind of abuse you may be complaining about. There's just no way. So the way in which narcissistic families thrive, be it within religion or out of religion, is through laying a negative foundation for their target or victim, which would be then the scapegoat. While other kids will be afforded opportunities to grow, they'll be protected, loved, nurtured, even their moral interest. The way in which narcissism is so precise and clear in its objectives, the golden child gets to be protected even morally. It's not just maybe for finances. Their entire existence gets to be valid, be respected, appreciated, loved, seen, heard. And then, of course, the other things follow suit, such as the financial support, provision, and all those things. That is how calculative narcissism is. So nothing is by mistake. And so what they do is, with the smear campaign, then they start little by little just spreading rumors about the child. And of course, the people they are talking to won't have the time or even dare to second guess the narcissist, to question the child. They'll just take whatever that the narcissist says. So if the narcissistic parent says, oh, this one is just so naughty. Oh, this one is not like his brother. He's always out late. He doesn't want to do his homework. His brother's always reading the Bible. His brother's always this and that. This one is just, I honestly don't know how this one's going to turn out. It just lays that foundation in a subtle manner, and they do it as if they are concerned or they really care about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to my child. But no, it is actually a character assassination that they're laying down, because now you've arrived on earth. You are now in this family and you are assigned the role of a scapegoat. So now they have to enforce the characteristics of a scapegoat upon you. They have to impose the different traits that they want to see you live out, because that is what they want, and that is just their main objective about everything. Essentially, narcissists operate and are possessed by the Jezebel spirit, which is the jealous, angry, hateful, accusing spirit. On previous video, I shared how they flip everything just to attack their target. If, for example, you are a loving person, then the narcissistic person is gonna say, oh, you are clingy. And this trait or this kind of smear is often seen in relationships. People that are genuinely, sincerely loving will hear a lot of times partners telling them that, oh, you are clingy, you are possessive. But no, it's not true. They are not like that. This is a smear. This is an imposition that is being committed towards the target, because the narcissist cannot make you anything you're not. So the only thing they can do is to impose that you are clingy or possessive. Let me just draw one more example just to show you how this narcissistic spirit plays out in the physical sense. Let's say you are someone who is sincere. This is another big one that I've observed and also experienced in my life, that narcissistic people twist in order to attack the character of their target, as well as to change the way that you see yourself and make you second guess or question yourself. So in the case that you are a sincere person, then the narcissist is going to impose naivety or gullibility on you. They will constantly suggest and constantly impose that you are gullible. But you know deep down that you aren't gullible. You are just being sincere. Again, this is just a tactic that they're using because they know they cannot make you insincere. you are naturally a sincere person. So instead, they twist your sincerity and they make you appear to be easily misled and foolish or untrustworthy even, which then results in your true nature of sincerity to be exploited. Let's have a look at now biblical context. I found two characters that are the epitome of how this Jezebel narcissistic spirit plays out. The first one I'd like to draw attention to is Joseph in Genesis 37 verse 11. Listen to what his brother says. It says, his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. When you drop down to verse 15, if you go up to verse 8, again, the Bible reiterates just how much they hated him. It says, and his brethren said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him, yet the more for his dreams. So they already had a foundational hate on him, but then the Bible says, yet the more for his dreams. I find it important to highlight that. So when people hate you for your success or your dreams or your intelligence or your wisdom, your pure essence, your good character, trust me, there is a foundational hate or envy from that. They don't just wake up all of a sudden and hate you. No, there's always an underlying and root emotion that they've always had towards you. My second example for this smear campaign is found in 1 Samuel 17 verse 28, where David is just bearing up under his brother's hatred. We see that this hatred manifests itself, or the Jezebel spirit manifests itself through character assassination, character smear, as well as just imposing trait that a person is not. So it reads that, and Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the man, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. So that's the big brother. And he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those sheep in the wilderness? Listen to what he says. I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. Are you kidding me? So Eliab, David's big brother, is smearing David with pride and naughtiness. But in reality, was David a prideful young man in his childhood and early teens? No. Was he naughty? No. But guess what? It is this Jezebel spirit, this narcissistic, hateful, angry, envious spirit that makes its host spew out all of this character smear. And listen to what David says in verse 29. He says, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? How can you say that I have pride and naughtiness in my heart? Like, what have I done? Like, he literally said, what have I done? I've experienced this in my own life. Growing up, my family just smeared me all the time. This was, of course, before I understood that, okay, I'm the scapegoat. So I would always find myself questioning where they derive the things they say to me from and what informs them of the things they are saying to me. But now that I'm older and I'm here, and God has taken me through this whole process of understanding narcissism from its root. So now I am just narcissistic proof. I can see it from a distance. I can smell it from far. You cannot fool me. Whenever people start doing all these things and tactics, I pick it up like this. I used to be confused, just like David was in verse 29, and that's another aspect. The entire purpose of the smear towards you as the target is to throw you into confusion, personality confusion, emotional confusion, because you know yourself, you know how you truly are. But then when these people are saying something about you, you then start to ask questions like, what do you mean? Where does this come from? What is the reason for it? Literally, like David is saying. Is there not a cause? So the purpose of the smear campaign is not only to smear your character in public and within the social dynamic, the church or community dynamic, but it is also a direct attack to the target, so that the target is fragmented emotionally, mentally, and it's just riddled with confusion. I love this so much. Okay, now let's move on to the spiritual smear campaign. It's not gonna even be longer than 2 minutes because it's literally the same thing. But now the spiritual smear is much more aggressive and egregious because it's like the devil places this cloud of rejection again an imposition. Because who is rejected? Like when we just have a serious conversation about it, who is the one that's rejected here? It's him. He's the one that's rejected. He's the one that is beyond repentance. He's the one that is irreconcilable to God. So the biggest thing that we experience as God's children on earth is the spirit of rejection. He is imposing his biggest problem on us. And so that's why you find people saying that, oh, in the work environment, they just don't like me. I don't know why they hate me so much. It is the spiritual narcissistic abuse that the devil is imposing on you as a child of God. And if you are not privy to this, if you do not understand what's going on, you're going to look at it in the physical and be offended. And then when you get offended, then you come in covenant or you come in agreement with the spirit of offense. Then that is going to enable and give the devil a even bigger legal right over you, just to torment you further, just to bring in the spirit of anger, because the entire idea behind narcissism is to get a reaction out of you. And so as I close this session, I want us to look at the master victor, the master conqueror, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Let us see how Jesus dealt with narcissists. When he was tempted on the 40-day fast, all he did was to disarm and weaken the darts of the narcissist. The devil was on his case on the last day of his fast because he's very strategic, like all narcissists. So he didn't attack him or tempt him. When he started his fast, he didn't tempt him. During the fast, he waited until the last day, because the last day of the fast is when you would be most weak or just tired or whatever. So that's when he went in to try and tempt him and impose all of these things on him. And I want us to focus more on Jesus' response rather than the temptation tactics. On all three accounts, we see this calmness, this beautiful essence of peace that Jesus displays. Why? Because he understands what's going on. He understands who he's dealing with. He gets it that this guy is a narcissist. This guy is rejected. So he's probably going to want to impose rejection on me. He's probably going to want to cause me to obey him because he's out of control. Like, he's desperate. So it is important for us to look to the example of Jesus on how he dealt with the god of narcissists, the devil himself. He dealt with him from an understanding of his psyche, from an understanding of his problem. When you understand the person you are dealing with, it is easier for you to respond to them because you will not be offended, you will not be angry, you won't be stressed or even pressured on how to respond to them, because you clearly get it. You clearly get how they operate and how someone in their position would operate. Let's take, for example, one last example from the Bible, the story of Joseph. When he was tempted by Potiphar's wife followed this principle of understanding your subject. The way in which she approached David, she was taking advantage of everything she knew about him, such as he is a slave. And how are slaves? Slaves are oppressed. They are needy. They are desperate in most cases. So she had that foundational understanding of David's case. Unbeknownst to her, she had that foundational understanding of Joseph's case in him being a slave. unbeknownst to her that he is no common slave. So she then further went to plan her attack on him, character attack, because David was a hardcore child of God. He was not playing about himself or his life or his principles. All the advances that she made, all of the attempts that she made, they yielded no fruit, because she was shocked to find out that Joseph is not desperate. Joseph is not someone that is willing to do just anything for a second of comfort. And so, although she was calculative, although she applied the principle of understanding your subject, because of his spiritual posture, he was able to be victorious against that accusation. Although it didn't lead to anything positive, like he got further abused, jailed for an accusation, but guess what? He stood on his principles. He stood on who he was as a child of God and his character. And within this example, I want us to look at how the devil punishes God's children, how the devil intensifies the difficulty, even when you make the right decision, even when you make the right choice. For example, Joseph did not rape Potiphar's wife. He was supposed to be free. But guess what? That's not how the system works. That's not how narcissists work. Narcissists will punish you for standing up for yourself. Narcissists will punish you for having victory over them. Narcissists will want to further oppress and attack you just because you wouldn't let them have their way with you. Look at what happened with Jesus. After all of those temptations that he was dealing with, just living on earth, as the enemy gets angry because he cannot handle rejection. The devil cannot handle rejection because he is already unbearably rejected. He is rejected with a burnt offering. So any slight rejection or just resistance, oh my goodness, it just drives him over the cliff. It just makes him so angry. Not only him as a spiritual entity, but also human beings that are possessed by the narcissistic spirit. If you see how they react when you deny or if you do not agree to what they want, oh, it is just the most horrific thing to watch. So with the example of Jesus, we see that because of all of his triumph over the temptations and hardships, adversity he was facing, ultimately he got to be crucified. And if you really look at it, crucified for what? It was a backlash. It was punishment that the narcissist was imposing on him, all because he resisted him. And we are no different. Our resistance of narcissistic abuse brings about hell for our lives. For example, Joseph stood his ground on his character and spoke the truth. He did say, of course, I didn't rape her. She's the one that came on me. But what happened? Did he walk free? No. Did he gain justice? Did Potiphar's wife get to be dethroned from that seat of being the wife of such a man of honor? No. But instead, Joseph got punished. He got sent to jail. Of course, he was meant to be beheaded. If anything, the woman was supposed to be beheaded because she's the one who lied. She's the one who imposed such a grievous accusation on Joseph. But that's not how the narcissistic spirit works. And so the same thing applies with us. Whenever we resist the devil, whenever we fight back or we push back, then we may find ourselves, in more cases than not, we find ourselves in just dire situations, and the devil will just blame you for it. Just like Jesus, he was blamed for his crucifixion. They blamed him as if he did something wrong. Sharing these examples just to give you a broader understanding of the reality of this narcissistic spirit, the smear and the purpose of the smear, what happens after the smear, and if all fails, then the repercussions that follow. Again, these things should not scare us. They should not shock us, but it should be liberating because the truth is liberating. It is written that ye shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. This is the peace that surpasses all understanding. There is this deep peace and calmness that one gets when they are in harmony with truth. Jesus' reaction to the crucifixion has been shocking. I remember watching The Passion of the Christ growing up. It was just the most confusing thing ever. How could he not have fought back? How could he not have retaliated? But now that I'm older, I realize that, you know what, he understood what he's dealing with. He understood that this is a narcissist, and a narcissist is gonna go out of their way to have their way. If they don't have their way, they throw a huge tantrum and they recruit other people to do their dirty work. Just like the crowd that was cheering on Jesus to be crucified. All of those moving pieces, then the narcissist uses them similarly to our physical experience. When the narcissist fails to overpower you in reality, in that relationship dynamic you're in, then they pull out from their sleeve all of these moving pieces, like your relatives, your community members, church people, because they absolutely must have their way. They absolutely need to be right and you have to be wrong. They need to be in control. They need to be in power. They have to exert their power. They cannot handle rejection. So that is the gist about the smear campaign. I hope that this video has been pretty informative. I pray that if you are dealing with narcissistic abuse and you have been exposed to it, I pray that the Lord sets you free and just burns the chaff and the plagues of narcissistic residue off of you, so that you are free from the confusion, you are free from the oppression, the frustration, and you get to live a life that God blessed you with according to Ephesians 1 verse 3 and 4. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.